This is weird, isn't it? It has been quite a minute since I last made one of these videos, and now I am bringing it back from the dead. But not just that, we also have a house band. Myself. Isn't he just swell? Anyways, to start off this new era of record reviews, by popular demand by myself, we are going to review an album that I consider to be a guilty pleasure because a lot of people consider to be utter garbage. Wings at the Speed of Sound. Now, Wings at the Speed of Sound and I have had an interesting history. I've been record collecting for about 5 years now, and this was one of the first records that I ever owned. As such, it is one of the few records that I've listened to multiple times, and one that I still listen to from time to time, such as whenever I'm hooking up new audio equipment and need something to test with. This is usually what goes on the turntable. Now, for those of you who don't know, Wings, also known as Paul McCartney and Wings, is Paul McCartney's solo project, or solo, if you will, after the Beatles' breakup in 1970. After their breakup, Paul McCartney released a solo album titled just McCartney, and then he got Wings together with his wife Linda McCartney and guitarist Denny Laine. Now, Wings went through a number of lineup changes, but this is what I consider to be the golden lineup, also known as the lineup that performed at Wings Over America and also performed albums such as Band on the Run and Venus and Mars. Joining the trio for this album is guitarist Jimmy McCulloch and drummer Joe English. Now, one interesting thing about this album is every single member of Wings sings their own track. Denny Laine sings The Note That You Never Wrote and Time to Hide. Jimmy McCulloch sings Why No Junko. Linda McCartney sings Cook at the House. And Joe English sings Must Do Something About It. Jimmy McCulloch and Denny Laine are no strangers to writing their own songs for Wings in previous albums, or specifically Venus and Mars. One of the common criticisms with Wings at the Speed of Sound is it's very bland. And it being a guilty pleasure for myself, I took another listen to it today, and it is kind of bland. The side openers Let 'Em In and Silly Love Songs are both great pop sounds that you would probably hear on radio, especially Silly Love Songs. That was definitely the radio hit that came off of this album. Standout tracks to me are Beware My Love, Time to Hide, Sam Ferry Lane, and Warm and Beautiful. Why No Junko and Time to Hide, while they are interesting tracks, Time to Hide especially doesn't really sit well with me anymore, since I once put this on while doing homework and got so frustrated that I almost scratched the disc, and what was playing? Time to Hide. A couple of strange tracks that are on here are Cook at the House, which is sung by Linda McCartney, and She's My Baby, which is the third track of the first side. She's My Baby is mostly lyric-wise. I believe one of the lyrics is, like gravy down to the last drop, I keep mopping her up, she's my baby. In terms of Cook at the House, the whole track is really just a standout track, but in a bad way. It's Paul McCartney's White Album granny music kind of side coming out again, because it's like a 50s, bouncy, rhythmic song sung by his wife. It's just a weird track overall. One of my own personal criticisms of this album is that some of the songs are too long. Beware My Love, which is the next to last track on side 1, is fantastic. It's a great song, but the problem is it's too long. Lots of songs on lots of these great albums like this, in my own personal opinion, great albums like this, usually end up having a long song syndrome, which is basically the songs are just too long because the songwriters thought that they were just so good that they had to just squeeze every drop out of it as possible. This is most apparent in lots of Oasis songs. While being an Oasis fan myself, they are one of my favorite bands, a lot of their songs are in fact too long. Two of the interesting tracks on Wikipedia are She's My Baby and Warm and Beautiful, which is the final track on this album. It's funny because both of them talk about their compositions and criticisms of both tracks being either Paul McCartney's best song or one of his worst songs. Personally, I think She's My Baby is, while it is catchy and something that you can definitely dance to, the lyricism alone leads it more towards the bad side, whereas Warm and Beautiful, I personally think is a fantastic Paul McCartney song. Following this album's release, they recorded Wings Over America. Jimmy McCulloch passed away from a drug overdose, and Joe English went back to America, to his hometown of Macon, Georgia, to perform with his own group. And thus, Wings became a trio once again. I believe that they later released London Town, which is an okay album. And then they finally released their last album, Back to the Egg, and then it was Paul McCartney back to being a solo artist. He then released McCartney 2, which is utter garbage. I might have to go with Beware My Love for my favorite song on this album, with a close runner-up being Warm and Beautiful, because, you know, I'm a sucker for those sappy piano songs that Paul McCartney plays. Not necessarily silly love songs, because he still plays bass on that. In terms of least favorite song, it's probably got to be Time to Hide because of my rocky past my rocky past relationships with that song in particular. This whole album is full of a bunch of silly love songs in and of itself, but for some reason, I just love the sound of it. I feel like this is one of their better albums, or one of the better Paul McCartney albums overall. I think this might be in my top 3. Take a listen to Wings at the Speed of Sound if you want to. I know that the full album is on YouTube. You can also listen to it on Spotify. You just listen to it anywhere you want. And because this is a lesser known and lower received album by Paul McCartney, you might be able to find a cheaper copy in some places where they might sell more expensive stuff. You can also get the archive collection version that Paul McCartney is re-releasing. That came out in, I believe, 2014, so you can find those remasters on YouTube and Spotify as well. And that about does it for this new episode of Record Reviews. I'm your host, David Bell, accompanied by my house band, David Bell. I really hope you guys like this new format of the show. I didn't want to put on the suit today just because I didn't want to. It was just a big hassle. But yeah. Leave me suggestions for albums you think that I should review down below, and if I own them, I just might review them one of these days. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are doing well in quarantine, and I will see you guys next time.